voice. So this call, mostly like this virtual event that we're having, is focusing on how one can actually be a journalist. Now, this can resonate with so many people here, whether you're literally just starting into the industry, whether you're navigating, whether you're looking for, promoting from one step to the next. I find that before you actually enter into the world of journalism, there's loads of what questions, like how do I get from A to B? What kind of skills, practical skills are needed if I want to go for presenter positions? What kind of skills do I already need to have inherited before wanting to work in production or etc.? So I don't think there's any better person than to speak to about it than Queen Charlene. Yep, that's the name that we're going with throughout this session. So I think if we were to go for a mini overview, Charlene, the earliest days, from when you felt as though you were finding your feet into this big world of becoming the journalist that you aspire to be, what did that look like?
It involved a lot of work experience. It involved a lot of getting myself into as many places as I could and getting as much experience of doing a job that I loved, because I figured out quite early on that if I got as much experience as I could physically and emotionally handle. So when I was at the BBC, when I was where you are, Hannah, I was sort of working, oh God, double and triple shifts, 7-day weeks, working across 6 different BBC networks. I did that for quite a long time. Because I figured if I got as much experience as possible, no one could ever use a lack of experience as a reason to not give me a job. They would have to be honest with themselves and honest with me by saying, I'm not giving it to you because you're a woman, firstly, or I'm not giving it to you because you're Black. If I got as much experience as I possibly could get, then a lack of experience could not be legitimately used as a reason to not give me a job. And I figured that out quite early on. That, and I come from an immigrant family where having more than one job is the norm because you're just trying to survive. So my parents are very much my role models in terms of that. But my very, very first work experience, I mean, a lot of people on this call for whom not having, who were born after email was invented. But when I was 16, you had to send out letters for work experience. And I sent out 50 letters. And where I actually wanted to go was Just 17 or Sugar magazine, which were the teenage girl magazines of the time. And then the others I kind of just wrote because, I figured 50 is a good round number. I'll just send it out to 50 different publications. And who I actually ended up, the only person I heard back from was the Guardian newspaper. And I was really disappointed because it was a grown up adult publication, and that's not really where I wanted to go. But I ended up doing work placements with them. I ended up working with a team that was looking at whether or not newspapers could work online, which is weird to think about now because The Guardian is one of the biggest online news publications in the world. But I was working with a team that was trying to figure out if newspapers could be a thing online. So my initial placement was meant to be 2 weeks. I ended up staying for 4. And at that point, I was already doing little part-time jobs in little local cafes and restaurants. So I had a little bit of money for travel and stuff like that. And I think at that point, they did pay for things like food, for example, from their canteen. So that's how I was able to do it for so long. And then because I already had that on my CV, when I was then applying for other places for work experience, it became slightly easier the more industries and more companies I had on my CV. But, having The Guardian, considering I didn't want it, it turned out to be the best thing in terms of me building a career, really.
Amazing. And gosh, who would have thought, though, that starting from those several bunches of rejections, it kind of makes me think back to what Claudia Lisa Vanderpoy said to me when I was starting out in journalism. She said, Hannah, for every 10 things that you apply for, prepare for 1 to respond back. Don't always expect, every single one to respond to you. And I find that when speaking to a lot of aspiring journos, or even those that are just navigating, they really do seem to just feel a bit set back every time they reach a rejection, or each time they never hear from this organization, or if they reach out to someone via email and never hear back. What kind of kept you going as you further went up the ladder?
I love CL, by the way. I love that woman.
Amazing.
It's probably not the best advice in the world, but it does work for me. For a start, an organization that refuses to give me a job or doesn't reply to my emails or rejects me for something that I'm clearly got the experience for, they end up on my hit list. And they end up becoming publications or broadcasters or channels that I actively choose not to work for again. And it's interesting, those that then start coming out of the woodwork when I, in the latter years, as I've become more successful. And I have a very long memory, and I'm never rude to anybody in the industry. I'm not at all. But I also will not be doing you any favors, because I knew what I was capable of, and I knew what I would end up doing. And I end up having a list of people that I'm very, 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 very aware of the decisions that they made that hampered my progress ever so slightly. But it's also a great motivator, because it's a bit like, you didn't think I was good enough to do X. Oh, I'll show you what I'm capable of.
Oh, yeah.
And they end up having to eat humble pie because they missed out on something which could have been great for them, but I just moved it along and made it great for somebody else. But that's the way I've always thought about things. I see rejections being quite a big motivator. Yes, I'm disappointed, but I'll always try and figure out a way to maneuver my career and my decisions so I can still get to the position that I want to get to, despite somebody else making the wrong decision.
Amazing. I can't help but think back to, again, I know that you've been in the industry for a little bit, but it does not show, first of all. Let's just set that straight. But I'm just trying to think of, a journalist starting out when you did in comparison to one now. I have asked a few people this similar question. Some say, oh, it's easier. Some say it's a bit harder because the industry seems to be quite saturated. What would you say? Are there a lot more different ways to navigate now?
Oh, gosh, yes. I mean, I'm not saying getting into the industry is easier, because I don't necessarily think it is, but I think the opportunities are definitely wider. I got into an industry where, if you wanted to know what else is happening in the world, the only way to know that was by picking up a newspaper, listening to a radio program, or turning on the telly and watching Trevor. Those are the only ways that you would know what else is happening in the world on a daily basis. Now those opportunities are far wider. They're vast, and they range in terms of the way, how, you'll have to forgive me, it's been a long day. It ranges in terms of where you can do that. So from online publications to social media companies to online magazines to quarterly magazines to, yes, daily newspapers, but you have a difference between a physical paper and what they do online. ITV News, when I started out at 16, ITV News was just watching it on TV. You can now consume what we do on TikTok, you consume what we do on Instagram and on Twitter. All those avenues require jobs. I look at it at a way, a lot of broadcasters and publications are playing catch up, because the talent that exists on this screen, for instance, if diversity of thought was seen in the way that it is seen now, and in terms of you can make a lot of money from it. It works out well for businesses to have a range of people. You're looking at neurodiversity, you're looking at race, you're looking at sexuality, you're looking at class. If we were being employed in the first place, there's a lot of broadcasters and a lot of publications that would not have been playing catch up, because actually, through having those creative minds, especially where social media is concerned, they have been creating the content that works online, but they've had to be taking that content to YouTube and doing it under their own names. Imagine those companies if they had stopped shutting the door to talent that comes from particular avenues and particular areas, that come from a particular class, for example. Imagine what those broadcasters and publications could be doing now if they had opened the doors to more of us. you've got these content creators who are making an absolute fortune by doing it by themselves. Jamal Edwards is a very good example of that.
Oh yeah, he's brilliant.
He was trying to do what he is doing now with bigger organizations that insisted on closing the door to him. He did it by himself, and look at where he is now.
It's true. I guess, there's so many sayings that come to mind, but if, what, I think I'm making this up, but something, create your own lane. It's something along those lines.
Yeah, I never, who knows, if I had been starting out now, if I came across those barriers that I came across in my younger years, I probably would have ended up doing it by myself, because I had, and this is what it always comes down to, it's having belief in your own ability, and it's not giving somebody else the power over you to doubt your own abilities and to doubt your own passion. There's one thing that I'm very lucky, I was raised by parents who instilled things like that within me. I knew what I wanted to do. I knew my own creativity. I knew my passion. I knew how good I could be. And I refused to allow somebody else to take that away from me. And that's how my parents raised me, because they always believed in me. They saw my passion for writing, my passion for performing. It's something that they continually nurtured. And I am eternally grateful for that, because through nurturing that, they gave me the self-belief that I could do it, that there was never any doubt in my mind that I would achieve what I wanted to achieve, because no one deserves to take that power away from me. And I've done my career thus far refusing to allow people to take that power away from me.
I love that. And I think when that amazing wisdom and advice is just poured into you from such a young age, it literally becomes the norm. And it's almost as though we're just smashing through the glass ceiling. Like, where haven't we seen and heard you? Guys, Empire's Child, ITV Hub, please check that out. I am plugging all of that. The fact that you've gone from news to documentaries and etc. I think because you had that mindset from such a young age, did you think, okay, so not even the sky's the limit, the clouds are, were you open to always navigating into different areas in the industry?
Yeah, and I know, I know how I think about news in my head, and I don't think that that's exclusive to me at all. So Loose Women is a very good example of that. A lot of people, when I covered First last summer, it came as a really big surprise to some people, not a surprise to others. But for those it came as a surprise to, they sort of said, well, aren't you worried it's going to affect what you do on the news? But the way I look at news is Loose Women is an extension of what I do on the news. I'm just giving the news in a slightly different package. That is all. And I think the idea that news can only be in one way, that news can only be done in one way, I have never signed up to that. A lot of that comes from who I am as a person, but a lot of that comes from working at the likes of Radio 1 and One Extra. They allowed us the creativity as young journalists to play with the way that we did news, to not just do it in the normal Radio 4, Radio 5 way. They allowed us the freedom to do it in a way that we believed could work. And I was there for 6 or 7 years, working alongside incredible journalists from such diverse backgrounds, and religions. And I didn't realize how important and how different that was. I did a year of working at ITV and then was doing Radio 1 and One Extra. And I just assumed that's what all newsrooms were like, that all newsrooms had a ton of working class Black kids doing news, a ton of working class Jewish kids doing news, a ton of, working class Muslim kids. I just assumed that all newsrooms were like that. And all newsrooms allowed you to be creative, that all newsrooms allowed you to tell stories in a way that I could be just like sat in Manor Park in Lewisham up the road from where I grew up and just telling a story to my mate. I assumed all newsrooms allowed you to do that. And then I moved into grown-up newsrooms and realized that, we're all supposed to do it in this one way. And if you divert away from that, somehow you're not a serious journalist. And I think I was given that power from being at One Extra, because we were allowed to be so creative. I learned from then that actually it can be done in the way that I like doing it. And so, you know, writing scripts in a very particular way. I write my scripts as I speak. I don't use long sentences. I don't use long words to try and make myself seem intelligent. I know I'm intelligent. I don't need to use long words to try and convey that. I know I've got a brain. You know, the way that I present the news is very me, because I don't see why I should present it like anybody else. I want to present it like me. And I was really, really lucky, really, really lucky. And I do feel really blessed to work where I work here, because they never have ever tried to change me. And I had been, you know, I've worked at places where they tried, but you know, the moment I landed here, they knew what they were getting from me, and they encouraged that, and they allowed me to grow with that, and they nurtured that, but they never tried to change that. And that was very important. And that's how I've been able to do the things that I do. So when I then landed on Loose Women, people were like, oh my gosh, isn't that going to ruin what you do on the news? It's like, have you not seen what I do on the news? It literally is just an extension of that. And I fundamentally disagree with the way that people assume that you can only be doing serious news if you're doing, say, Newsnight, for example, or if you're doing the Today programme on Radio 4, or if you're doing any of those what's deemed as serious, then it's not proper news. I've never signed up to that. And I think it does the country a disservice, because not everybody gravitates towards those programmes, but that doesn't mean they don't have an interest in news. We have a responsibility to give it to them in lots of different ways, because that's the point of journalism. There isn't just one way, there's a plethora of ways. It's a reflection of society, and the people that work in it should also be a fair reflection of society. And that's where you end up with a really beautiful plethora of ways to do news.
Absolutely. Woo, gosh. We have so many questions coming in right now as well. But I just want to ask the last one, especially, you know, touching on Loose Women, the outfits, the posts, everything. Like I was so jealous. I just needed to be on that round table. And then even more remarkably, I guess, making history, because I'm not sure if it was yourself or probably Julie who posted a picture of all of you being an all Black female panel on the show. And then I wrote an article a few months ago about when are we going to stop celebrating firsts? Not necessarily in a pessimistic way. It's absolutely incredible and groundbreaking. Things like this make me smile. I think about the photo of you all beautifully smiling, you know, just owning that slot and just being your authentic selves. I think of Daniel Kaluuya being the first Black British actor to win an Oscar. I think of Michaela Cole and the Emmy. But I would be keen to know, what's your thought on the fact that we are still celebrating firsts in 2021?
It just shows for me, do I say that I'm lucky enough to have done a lot of firsts? I think I have a determination that I have always had. Which is, you can't tell me that something isn't possible, because I'll just prove to you that it is. You know, you can't tell me that having 4 Black women on national TV in the middle of the day is not going to work, because I'll just prove to you that it can. You can't say to me that you can't possibly have a Black woman presenting news at 10. Well, I'll do everything that I can to reach that point. Although I didn't realize I was the first one when I did it. I did it because I was asked to, and realized I was the first afterwards. But there are no programs that exist on British TV that a person who is non-white can't do, is the way that I look at it. People may tell you that they can't, and that's simply not true. And I've worked very hard, you know, to do my career in a way that if you tell me something is not possible, I will do everything in my power to prove to you that it is. And yes, it's tiring. Yes, I don't get a lot of sleep. But I'm a child of immigrants. My dad left out for work at 5:30 in the morning and didn't finish his day until 9:30, 10 o'clock at night because of the various different jobs that he did. That is how I was raised. That is my normal. So me working different jobs and doing all the stuff that I do, yes, is about normalizing seeing a Black woman on TV, but it's also, I'm not the first person to try to do this at all. There have been people that have come before me, of course they have done, and they have worked their asses off to lay the groundwork for me to be able to come through. And then I lay the groundwork for the next generation to come through to make it easier for them. And there are so many of us that are doing exactly the same thing to make it so much easier for the next generation. And that's how things work. You know, I did a panel earlier on in the week, and I just sort of said, you know, it works generation, it works different. My parents worked their bums off to be able to produce me and my brother and sister. In terms of dealing with diversity within their workspaces, they did it perhaps in a quieter way because they couldn't afford to do it in a loud way. They had to put food on the table. They had bills to pay. They couldn't afford to be a disruptor in any shape or form, but they laid the groundwork for me to be able to be a bit more vocal about the stuff that I do. I wouldn't class myself as a disruptor in any shape or form. I am vocal, but I do things in a very specific way. But then you have the next generation, who I would call the disruptors. They are in a very fortunate position where they can speak up about things, but where technology is concerned now, if things don't work for them, they'll just do it by themselves. That was kind of like, I have got zero time for this whole, I've got to wait 15 years before I can be the boss of something. No, I'll just be the boss of my own company. Yeah. Those are the disruptors, and all this groundwork has been laid for them to be able to do that. And I'm here for it. And I absolutely love it. And I respect them hugely. I've got so much time for them because it's about bravery, isn't it? You know, the technology didn't really exist in that way when I was younger, and I probably wasn't as brave. They are now in a situation where they can do what they want, make money from it, and succeed. And they're leaving a lot of these official broadcasters behind. And it's really interesting to see that those who've done it on their own, how much they are now being taken into the mainstream. Their talent hasn't suddenly appeared. Munya, for instance, was writing for other people for a very, very, very long time, and then started posting his own content online, and look at where he is now.
A literal internet sensation disruptor as well, you know. I mean, and I guess I'll put myself in that category also as a disruptor. So yeah, I'm here for it too. I guess I'll go over to some of the questions. I know that we have Charlene for the next less than 15 minutes. So one question, Charlene, is from someone who's already a journalist who did their NCTJ, and they've had work experience with some really big national names. When they started working, it didn't really work out well, as this person has sickle cell anemia, and the company couldn't adjust the workplace to their needs. Very tricky. Again, it's being a minority within another minority. And I'd be quite interested to know what advice you would give that person in that particular kind of situation.
The angry side of me would be a bit like, I've got zero time for people that can't adapt to somebody's health needs. I've got zero time for companies that just can't be kind. And it's like that kind, it's about being a decent human being, first of all. And if a company cannot be a decent human being, they do not deserve your talent. That'd be the angry side of me. The more practical side of me, and that's what I've done throughout every company that I've worked for, is I'll always find somebody that can be a cheerleader for me, who can be a mentor for me. There will always be a senior member of staff that I will always end up in their office having a chat about something or another. When I first came to ITV, it was a gentleman called Robin Elias, who was our managing editor. And on a daily basis, and Robin, quite was people on this call will know Robin, I would turn up in his office and I'd just be like chatting to him. And if I ever had any worries about anything, he would help me to navigate that. When I was at uni, my lecturer, Tony Delano, I would always land in his office chatting absolute nonsense and trying to help, unfrazzle my head about something or another. It's through him that I ended up working at the New York Post. That's how I got my placement at the New York Post and ended up working there for a summer. I've always found my cheerleaders and people who I can just ask question of. Di Ridley, who will be talking after me, I put Di in that category. If I still have things I have to navigate and are very unsure of at times, and I will land myself in Di's office and I'll have a conversation with Di about things. I at no point in my career have I not needed somebody. I've always needed somebody. And with the person that sent in the question about companies dealing with her sickle cell, if there's one thing I would say is find your cheerleader, because you may feel that you are too junior to be able to embarrass a company into dealing with you properly. So you find somebody that's senior who can embarrass them on your behalf, because it's an utter embarrassment. They shouldn't have to be finding ways to deal with your sickle cell. They should be looking at ways to help you navigate full-time work with your sickle cell. It's not on you, it's on them. And if you're somehow able to find somebody that you trust within any of the organizations that you work in that will have your back, that is hugely important to navigating the work life. I wouldn't be where I am without having senior people that have my back.
Thank you so much for that, Charlene. The next question is someone who would like to, I'll say their name. It's from Manifa. Hello, lovely Manifa. She wants to ask how important it is to move around, so quite literally geographically, whilst pursuing journalism opportunities. So Manifa has moved to Norwich and then Birmingham, but as a South Londoner, any South Londoners in the house? I'm not, but shout out to you guys. I'm from Hackney, the best borough. Anyway.
Oh, never mind.
But she says, as a South Londoner, she does miss home. So,
oh my God, we as Black, as descendants of Black immigrants, we've got to get over living within our own postcode and insisting we've got to stay there. We've got to stop that. My first job, my mum was ill when I took my first job at Meridian in Maidstone. So I made the decision to stay close to home because my mum was sick. I was lucky enough to be able to work in Maidstone. Being from South London, I could commute back and forth from Maidstone. I've also lived in Norwich. I've also lived in Southampton. I've also lived in Newbury. I moved to New York and worked for the New York Post. You become a better journalist by living. You move to Ghana. You become a better journalist by moving outside of your postcode. That is a given. Whether or not you're able to afford to do that is something very different. However, if you are originally from South London, living anywhere else in the country is a lot cheaper than living in London. And that is just a fact. And also the idea for a lot of, I know from my perspective, from a lot of Black Caribbean immigrants, children of Black Caribbean immigrants, the thought of living in a shared accommodation fills them with absolute horror. We've also got to get over that as well. If you've got to move to a shared house in Leeds in order to be able to work out of a Channel 4 office in Leeds for a bit until you're able to afford to rent your own place, then so be it. We do have to get over the fact that, I may well be moving far from home. Okay, if you have a passion for what it is that you want to do, then you make those sacrifices. Yes, if you end up gravitating back towards London, that is great. But there are so many more media hubs that are now being created in the north that we shouldn't be turning our back on or turning our nose up at in any shape or form. If you want to be a news journalist, you absolutely have to move outside of London because you'll be working on big stories that you would not be working on if you were based in London. That is a fact. And if you want to be seen as a serious, just about every single person I work with in this newsroom has worked outside of London before they then worked in London. And that is why they are the journalists that they are, because they've worked on those big stories in smaller newsrooms to be able to move here to work on big stories in big newsrooms. If that's what you want to do for a career, then you've got to accept the fact that yes, you may well have to move away from your postcode and out of Southeast London, but you'll always be #Blue Borough.
#Blue Borough. There we have it. Thank you for that, Charlene. The next question is one that I'll definitely like to chip into. I do get it quite a few times. So it's from Cameron, who is a massive fan. Cameron's currently studying law and would like to know if it's a good way of opening a door in journalism. What I would say is many amazing journalists out there, whether it's George Alagaya or, Claudia Lisa, countless, didn't actually study a journalism titled degree. And I think that's also something that we should speak about a bit more, especially when people are in that stage of picking their degree, that it's okay to pick what you like. Or what would you say?
Oh God, I mean, my parents were really upset when I chose to do journalism, really upset, begged me not to do journalism because they didn't see it as being a proper course. And when you work at certain broadcasters, just doing journalism, not doing, say, law or English and then doing a journalism MA, you are seen as being less than. People have a tendency to see you, what's the right and correct way to put this, as being a not proper journalist. If you've not done, say, law at Oxbridge or something, and then, worked your way up, really work your way up when you've gone to Oxbridge, loads of doors open for you. But I made the decision to not do that. I knew what I wanted to do as a job. I went straight into journalism, but I know how that looks to other people who have done law or what have you. In a lot of places, that is seen as a massive advantage. But it's not something I chose to do. But knowing other things does help. So if you do a language, for instance, say you decide to do a language at university, well, that opens up loads of doors. If you do Spanish, if you do French, suddenly international journalism and working abroad becomes so much easier. You do law. If you want to become a media lawyer, for example, you can specialize in that. If you do law, the way that your brain works in order to be able to sift through documents, especially when you're doing investigations, for example, a massive plus point. Things that I don't. They are sort of things that I don't have in terms of traits that go alongside, that go hand in hand with being a journalist. Of course you can study something else and be a journalist. Of course you can. There are people who work in journalism that don't have degrees. So, it's this, people assume it's a foregone conclusion that you have to study something to be a journalist. Being a journalist is about telling stories. That's literally all it is. It's about telling stories. If you're able to tell stories, doesn't matter what you study, you can be a journalist.
Typical mute. Exactly that. I think that's it. I think because of the fact that there are so many different avenues and areas within it, often some people do get a little bit discombobbled and just think, okay, at the end of the day, it's essentially informing and educating audiences. And if you can do that in an impactful way, then just go for it. And the degree that you study could even encourage you to think of things differently, or even push you in a different area of interest as you pursue journalism. So this will be the last question, I'm afraid. Other ones I'll definitely touch on more because they are quite similar to what Charlene has mentioned in recent questions. And of course, this is recorded and will be out to share. It's about the amazing hairstyle that you're rocking, that you have been rocking. Yeah, that's right. We're taking it to the hair salon, okay? It is quite interesting, isn't it? Like, sometimes I don't like to make a big deal out of natural hair. Like, these are braids, but I have 4C natural hair. And when I wear it out proudly, I never want it to be a statement, but it is. So the question from Florence is, how was it wearing your natural hair on ITV and, making that statement known
Sometimes people are quite disappointed when I say this, but I wasn't making a statement. So all sort of like me, we're having my grace streak. It's not a statement. It's because I'm a mum of 2 young kids who works 3 jobs. I haven't had time to go to the hairdressers. How it happened was that I stopped relaxing my hair when I got pregnant. So I didn't want the chemicals in my system whilst I was pregnant. And then it was my hairdresser said to me, well, why don't you do, rather than relaxing it after pregnancy, why don't you Brazilian blow dry and wear it, flat twist it and pin it up or something? I was like, oh yeah, that sounds like a good idea. And then last summer, I'd gone to the hairdressers, she'd flat twisted it. She was running late as always. I was on London. My shift starts at 2 o'clock. I got there at 9 o'clock in the morning. I was like, I need to leave. It's just down the road at Warren Street. It got to 1:30. I was like, I need to leave. And I need to leave because I start work at 2 o'clock. So she was undoing the flat twists. And then she said, and I said, you know what? It's fine. I'll put it up when I get to work. I have to go. And I was so busy with work and I didn't leave myself much time to do my makeup. And then I didn't leave myself much time to pin my hair up. And I was like, oh, for goodness sake, it's fine. I'll just go on screen like this. It's just not a problem. And that's sort of how it happened. So it was never a conscious decision. It was complete like, all right, fine. And then it stuck, really. I mean, one thing that I've always said is there's no guarantee that I'm not going to rock up doing big old ITV News, having done a blow dry, whatever. It's just at the moment, with having my 2 kids and working the ridiculous way in which I do, this is by far the easiest way for me to have my hair. I do it myself. I have my wash day on a Sunday. I wash it in the morning after I give the kids breakfast. I pin it up. I scrape it back in a bun. And then when I go to bed at 7 o'clock, I blow dry it. I flat twist it. It's ready for the week. And I flat twist it every night when I get home. Some days I don't flat twist it because I'm too tired. But I can like do a thing where it's half up, half down. And it looks like I've spent hours on it when I haven't. So it literally did just happen purely by accident. It was never like I had a big existential crisis or that I suddenly decided that I was going to make a really big impactful statement. It just kind of just happened.
Amazing, thank you. And guys, that's literally, we've already got a peek into the life of Charlene's hair care routine. So if you want to copy, then you can go for it. But before I leave you, Charlene, I mean, I just want to say thank you. You're not only just an incredible journalist, presenter, inspiration, you're Alfie and Florence's mum. They're so lucky to have you. And you've inspired so many people here. People are literally just showering you with compliments in the comments. But if there's one thing that you want people to walk away with just from this short session that we have, what would it be? Yeah. Anything that comes to mind?
Don't let anyone make you feel less than, never, ever give somebody that power. If you know what it is that you want to do with your life and you are passionate about journalism and you know that you are good at what you do, don't let anybody dim your light. If you're working for somewhere and they don't recognize that, there are a number of places that you can take your talent. So many places you can take your talent to. That's what I did. I took my talent to somewhere where I felt that it would be appreciated. And that's why I brought it here to ITN. And I was right to make that decision because I didn't feel like I'd be appreciated where I was at before. And in my heart of hearts and my gut, I knew that was the right decision. And it turns out that it was, because I don't ever want my light to be dimmed. And no one should ever let them, never, ever give, just generally in life anyway, never give someone the power to dim your light, but especially within your career.
Oh my gosh. Thank you.
I'm gonna have to go now because Florence has a temperature and I think she's got an ear infection. So
Bless her. Oh my God. Hugs from me.
This is my life.
Thank you.
Thank
you so much, Charlene. You rock, you're amazing, you're incredible. Thank you so much. Okay.
Thank you for having me, guys. Enjoy the rest of the session.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, she's amazing. Let's just clap for her, even though she's left. Let's just give it up for Charlene because she owns that. She's absolutely phenomenal. I'm gonna post a photo, like a throwback of us when we met 6 years ago, and it's crazy because I feel like as I see so many of your lovely faces, even younger faces, it just reminds me of when I started into journalism. Like, honestly, guys, it's not too late. This was 7 years ago. I hadn't worked at any organization. I'm sitting down with this incredible journalist and my brother, you know, focusing more on the chicken than asking her key bits of advice and etc. But when I eventually did, some of the things that she said stuck. But I guess I needed that. I spoke about so many things that I wanted to do, and she essentially asked me, like, what's holding you back? Why aren't you doing it? You have so much access to things from your fingertips. If these big organizations can't give it to you, you can create the way and literally pave you know, your future to get to where you want to be. And that is exactly what I did. I saved up a bit of money to buy £100 camera. My best friend would literally go everywhere with me to film stuff, and I'd whack it on YouTube. And then I started building a professional profile. I started connecting with people. I would watch the credits after every BBC Three documentary. I was obsessed with them, and I would reach out to journalists and execs and ask them things about it. Like, there's so many ways to effectively network. And one of the main reasons why this came to being was because of the amazing Diane Ridley, who really, really excited to hear from. So Diane Di is who Charlene was referring to. And, you know, it's so important to have incredible people like that in your corner, because I guess it's evidence as to why Charlene's, you know, really rides for ITV News, which is what she describes as a really great organization. So, oh gosh, wait, well, we're meant to hear from Di later, but why don't we hear from you now, since I've spoken about you? So,
thank you. You know, I'm inspired by Charlene when I hear her, and I have to say, she's like that all day, every day. A gorgeous, kind individual, generous with her time. You know, she's exactly as she was tonight: inspirational, kind, and generous person. And you know, I love listening to her myself. Anyway, I'm Di Ridley. I'm the managing editor at ITV News. And I suppose the first thing I should say is thank you for coming, and happy birthday to We Are Black Journos, to Hannah, and the rest of you on this call. I've watched your organisation grow from afar. I remember once thinking, oh gosh, what's this? Oh wow, okay, this looks interesting. Watching the live stream, and I contacted Hannah, and what we really wanted to do tonight was all meet in person, obviously with COVID still where we are, but let's hope for 4th birthday that we can be having drinks and nibbles at this stage and networking as opposed to on the Zoom. And I've been working with Hannah, and I just want to say I share every single job that ITV News has with Hannah. So please keep across those newsletters. Look at our LinkedIn page and look at our ITN page. You'll see the jobs. If you ever need any advice or anything, I'm going to put my email on a system here. I'll put it in the job. Never hesitate to contact me. And basically, I just want to tell you a little bit about the jobs we have on offer. I know there's a spectrum of everyone on this call, people at all different points in their careers. But just to say, obviously, Charlene and reporters on screen, it's very easy to see what they do. But ITN, there's a whole army supporting them. And that's whether you're camera operators, news editors, graphic designers, writers, output producers, BT editors, planners, fixers around the world, a massive digital team, a long form team. We're in a building that we share. ITN are our employers, with Channel 4 here, Channel 5 are there, ITN Productions here. So 200 Grazing Road is, I always refer to it as, a land of opportunity. And as soon as you're in the door, that just opens up to you. As ITV News, we're also linked up to all the regions and the nations. So if you are in Manchester, you know, knock on the door of Granada. If you are in Leeds, Callander, STV in Scotland, we're in the Channel Islands, you know, so it doesn't have to be moved to London. We've got, you know, more and more. We're expanding around the country, and those local newsrooms are very, very good training grounds. I wanted to say we've got 2 jobs on offer at the moment that are amazing jobs right at the heart of the newsroom. We're looking for assistant news editors, which is at entry level, supporting a news editor in the news gathering machine across home and foreign. At the moment, we've got deputy news editors, which is a step up from that, working with our planning teams, organising our coverage. Every year we have a trainee. Charlene was a trainee. I was a trainee in 1999. The editor who sits next door was a trainee. So, you know, we have that every year. Look out for that. We have apprentices, people that chose not to go to uni. They've come from school and they do day release once a week to do an NCTJ course. There's many routes into this building. You know, my ambition for ITV News is for us to have the most diverse newsroom with the best diversity in our programme. So please don't be a stranger. Please look at the jobs. As a third birthday, and to celebrate that, and because of all the different jobs we have, I want to offer 3 mentorships to anyone who wants to email me. Whether you want to be a camera operator, I'll link you up with a camera operator. If you want to be a graphic designer, I'll link you up with a graphic designer. So 3 people from within ITV News to try and offer you that guidance. This year in COVID, we have only done virtual work experience. Next year, we're hoping to get it much more people coming through. Again, email me, send me your CVs, like a talent scout, possible talent to come and join ITV News. So please get in touch. I've been really looking forward to tonight. Just see so many great faces on this call. You know, somebody gave me a chance in 1999. I'm from a council estate up in Manchester. A woman who's a CEO now gave me a chance. It changed my life. And now I'm in the position I can do that for others. So I feel very, very lucky. And the people who get on at ITV News are those that, you know, are persistent, patient, dedicated. I would describe us as a family because once you're in there, so many paths you can take. And thank you very much for coming along tonight, is what I want to say. And I love working with Hannah.
Yeah, no, Di, you're not getting rid of me at all. I can't believe we've not even met each other in person. We've actually met at some point over a year ago. So just really grateful just to be connected with you and all the amazing things that Di mentioned. She's kindly dropped her email as well if you want to get in contact directly. We've put our email in there a few times if you want to join our newsletter, be kept up to date. If you ever want to CC us in, if you know, you're getting in contact with someone, feel free to do that. We literally want to be your wing person or however, and that helpful bridge, because we're connected with so many incredible organizations, ITV being one of them. So honestly, thank you all so much for joining. Before we leave though, I'd really love to just hear any pointers or anything that you guys found like very helpful and useful from today. But rather than it just sitting in the chat box, I want to hear your lovely voices, whether you're comfortable with video or not. Could we just have like a raise of hands, if you could do the hand thing, if anyone would like to, you know, share any feedback or anything. I'm not too sure if Vanessa, you're purposely having your hand raised, because I know that the hand has been there for a while. But if anyone wants to make any points from what they found useful from today, I'm going to nominate because I recognize some faces. Okay. Oh, I don't need to because the lovely Susie's put up her hand, and then I'll go to Nicola. Okay, I've asked you to unmute. Boom. Hi, Susie.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for this opportunity. It was really, for me, quite inspirational, because I was the person that asked the question about the sickle cell, because I went through a really tough experience to a point where I lost complete faith in the industry, and even questioned my ability, my life, because all I've ever wanted to do from the age of 6, since seeing Jill Dando, I wanted to be a journalist. So I went through a terrible experience this year, but hearing Charlene say, you know, have a wing person in your corner and never let someone tell you your abilities, that really touched me, because I consider myself a strong woman. I've been through a lot. I have a lot of life experiences. I've been through a war. And so for me to not be able to be strong at work and to go through something like that, it really made me question myself. So to hear Charlene say, never give up, it was just, I feel like it was just the right thing I needed, because everything is so recent. I wasn't even sure if I was going to come today because I didn't know what it was going to be about. But Charlene's really given me that push, and this whole group, just seeing a group of like women that look like me, it's really like inspired me. So I'm not going to give up, but thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was beautiful. Thank you so much. Just again for your transparency. And that's one thing that we always say, this is an absolute safe space. And the fact that you felt that even in a virtual kind of presence, it means so much to me personally and the organization, and it motivates us to keep going. So thank you so much. Yeah, please do. We do want to hear from you in our newsletter. If you're on Telegram, just trying to stay away from WhatsApp groups because it can just be so loud. So if you guys, are on Telegram, please do join. I saw that Nicola had then raised her hand, so I'm just going to ask to unmute. Thank you.
Hi, listen, I think Susie stole my shine in regards to the power that this group brings, and that's why I wanted to just communicate that Hannah, the work that you're doing on this cannot be underestimated under any stretch of the imagination. And so for me, I would definitely say thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, don't get me started, please, Nicola. Don't. Oh God, I put a heavy amount of concealer on today. My goodness. That means so much, Nicola. Thank you. Thank you. I saw that Florence has put her hand up, and I'm trying to find her. I think my glasses are absolutely there. You're right there. You're right on top of me. Hi, Florence.
Hi, everyone. So I just wanted to firstly say thank you for setting up this event, and it was really inspirational, and I think it was something that I needed today and stuff, because it was just kind of a constant reminder to not self-sabotage or to think less of yourself, but to know your abilities and to know that there will be workspaces that will appreciate that. And I really just really enjoyed it, and it's nice to see fellow people of color here as well. So yeah.
Thank you, Florence. That's very sweet of you. I really appreciate that. And okay, we've got one more hand. So and that is Lorna. Lorna, I will ask you to unmute.
Well, Susie and Nicola just, said it before I got a chance to say it. And it was just to say, thank you, Hannah. You are amazing. You are a disruptor of disruptors, because I love your mission. So everyone, I'm not a journalist, but I just love what Hannah's doing. I'm a filmmaker. I suppose I am a journalist, actually. It was interesting when Charlene said, a journalist is someone who wants to tell stories. So I tell stories. I suppose I am a journalist. The thing is, I suppose I am I think I'm older than Charlene, and I've been knocked, and I kind of feel I did kind of want to give up, and I kind of thought, it's too much. And then Hannah comes along with We Are Black Journos. And in my own little way, I'm creating my own little stories, but this forum is so important. And sorry, the lovely lady from ITV who Charlene's sorry, I didn't catch your name, but it's so wonderful. Your story. It's so wonderful because at the end of the day we're all humans and we just want to do a job, and it's just so wonderful that we've all had knockbacks, and it's just so wonderful to hear. Sorry, what's your name? The lady who works with Charlene.
Oh, Diane.
Oh, I keep on missing it, but it's just so wonderful to hear your story, and hear where you're coming from. And every person on this call, you're here for a reason, and we have to just leave empowered. Whatever you're gonna do, just make sure we're skilled up and you do your best. Do you know what I mean? But Hannah, I love you. You're just amazing with We Are Black Journos. This is changing people's lives. Those 3 positions that have been donated to We Are Black Journos, because We Are Black Journos is 3. That's going to change 3 people. That's going to give 3 people who didn't have opportunities yesterday opportunities today. So, you know, embrace what, you know, the opportunities, you know, I can go on all night, but I'm going to shut up because I know, but it's just, this is just wonderful. Keep up the excellent work, Hannah. That's Glenn in the background, sorry.
Oh, Glenn. Thanks, Glenn.
But yeah, just everybody, you're just all amazing. And you're, you know, just, oh, this it's just been empowering. You know, I'm excited. I'm not a journalist, so yeah, just go for it. It's just been wonderful. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Di, sorry, I can imagine you've been in the office for a long time, but I think following on from this, just for a few more minutes, I'm just going to quickly answer some pointers that people asked Charlene earlier. I just want to get into that, so I don't want to hold you. Oh, actually, no, you have to stay there because we're logged into your Zoom. So, but but we will close this up in a few minutes. But honestly, I'm literally, I'm so happy that there's an option to save. You can save the chat section because the messages that I'm just seeing are just so touching, and I just hope that I'm responding to each one individually. But it just means so much. Thank you, Vicky, for filling in your details. She's amazing. You've got to connect with her. She's incredible. And just so many of you in the chat section. You're just awesome. It's great to see old and new faces and etc. There was a question, I can't remember who from, but it was someone asking Charlene, what advice would you give promising young people wanting to pursue a career in presenting or create a podcast? And I am not joking when I'm saying, and I said this yesterday at our in-person event, there are successful YouTubers known worldwide for literally just starting by recording videos on a smartphone. Every single person in here has a smartphone. There are award-winning podcasts that started from recording things on their smartphone. I know it sounds easy and a bit, but you can literally create your own media. You can create your own journalism before you officially become one. Don't be afraid to, just play around with it, figure out your style, blog your journey and progress, send things to people to hold you accountable. What are you waiting for? You don't need to buy a £5,000 camera to create story content. One of my favorite sayings, it's also a Bible verse: if you wait for perfect conditions, you'll never be ready. So literally just do it. There is nothing stopping you. Imposter syndrome is one thing, or just, worrying about what people think, but there will never be another you. No one will ever be able to produce things the way that you do. And how will you know until you give it a try and ask for feedback? That's literally how I got started. And I'm so happy that I went that way, because it made me feel more comfortable within myself before I then decided to go out there and do it. And then another question, because I just want to make sure everyone is at least answered. Well, this is the last one. It's from Vanessa. Hey, Vanessa. So Vanessa was one of a handful of Black reporters / presenters in the late 80s, and the experience was formidable but isolating due to racism from colleagues especially. Do you experience similar? I shouted out about I was a lone voice, even though I was risking my job. How was it for Charlene since she started 30 years ago? She has, spoken about that, I think, quite a lot. There's an interview that she did a few years ago about navigating, and she has been the subject of racial abuse, like many Black reporters do, sadly. And I think it just goes back to what she said. I mean, despite the haters or etc., she never saw a glass ceiling. And I think we really need to just rise above that. We need to almost completely disregard it, because we know that there's an elephant in the room. We know that when we enter a majority of British organizations, we're likely to be the only one. But then notice how she spoke about the fact that she had someone in her corner like Di, who literally held her hand. And I've been in that position so many times where it's been a bit awkward, but there's been one person that's made that little bit of extra effort with me. And that's the person that I hold on to, because that person also realizes there's an elephant in the room, and that person wants to see more of me. So what am I going to do? I'm going to make that person my ally, and I'm going to work and work and work and push it until I get to my desired career path so I can provide that example for journos to be. Now, when starting We Are Black Journos 3 years ago, there were quite a few amazing journalists who I looked up to and reached out to: Marvarine Cole, Marcus Ryder, Gary Young, and they all say the same thing. I wish this was around at that time. Not to say that the presence of Black journalists was scarce. They were there, but we just didn't have that physical networking space in order to help amplify those voices. So you guys basically walked so we could run. So thank you to, all of the journalists that have been doing it far before I did. I literally officially started working at the Beeb in 2014. So yeah, just shout out to everyone from every stage, whether you've been there for a while, you're thinking to get into it, you may not even be a journalist, but the fact that you want to become part of this community that amplifies voices, because essentially that's what it is. I have friends in so many other industries, like whether it's the law or finance or tech, and they're creating their own spaces. We're all essentially doing the same thing. We're not disregarding or canceling anyone else because you're not like us, but it's understanding that people see there's a gap and they want to work towards that. They want to see society reflected in every single organization or workplace. And I guess essentially that's what we're doing here at We Are Black Journos. It's very nice to know that with the growing numbers of Black journalists that I come across, I don't know every one of them. 7 years ago, I did. I swear to you, I almost did know every Black British journalist that I'd come across and connected with. So it's so nice to, be asked, oh, do you know this person? No, don't know him, which is great because it means that we're growing in presence, and it's very important that we are in this space and recognized and given more opportunities because we are good journalists. Okay, and that's it. We're judged on our abilities to create excellent content in whatever realm that may be. So yeah, I guess that's me closing this up. Again, thank you all so much. I'm gonna figure out how to save this chat area thing. How do I do that? Does anyone know how to? Wait, I think I've done it. Have I done it? You wouldn't think I use Zoom every single day of the week. But if anyone knows, save chat. Boom. Found it. Yep, I got it. Great. Because I just want to read your lovely messages until I fall asleep tonight, because I'll be smiling and dreaming about how awesome you all are. So thank you so much. Please connect with We Are Black Journos. If anyone wants to connect with me personally, I have put my @ there. That's for the good old Twitter and Instagram, and then that's my personal email as well. So I would be so happy to connect with anyone. And again, thank you so much for celebrating 3 years of We Are Black Journos. Thank you so much to Queen Charlene, who's rushing home to her kids' supermama. And thank you so much to Di Ridley, who's never getting rid of me because she's amazing. And we will meet in the flesh soon. Congrats to Tilly for guessing our birthday date. Tilly, I think you're on our mail list, so we'll be sending you a cheeky Nando's voucher. And lastly, again, 3, so 3rd year of We Are Black Journos. So yesterday we had our in-person event. Today we spoke to amazing Charlene, hosted by ITV News, to learn more about their amazing jobs and opportunities that they have. And thirdly, tomorrow, and then after that, I promise I'm going to sleep, we're having our first Twitter space. So whoever's on Twitter, please jump and join in the conversation. Never used it before, but thankfully it's just my voice you'll be hearing, so I can't screw it up that much. And we're actually going to be talking about how to effectively pitch to organizations. As I mentioned, we're partnered with loads of great organizations who are always looking for writers, pay really well. And we're going to be speaking with them and just gaining all the essential tips about how to effectively pitch. So yeah, thank you guys so much. I hope you're connected with We Are Black Journos as well on social media. It's literally We Are Black Journos. And yeah, thank you so much again for having us here and just riding through with the community. So yeah, Those are my final words. Di, you have the power to, oh wait, let me